Today I'm going to be sharing with you an interview with some friends of ours who moved to the country a number of years ago, and they, very much like myself and my wife, we had all of these ideals. We want this much land, and we want this, we want a spring and gravity-fed water, or whatever it is. You know, they had their own ideals, and most of the things I was looking for I didn't get. But yet we still have had the perfect country property for us at the time. And they're going to share their story of the things that they had great desires. They had, so many acres they wanted to have, and they found something much smaller. And they finally realized, I don't want to let, this grand ideal get in the way of what I need to be doing now. And they finally went forward and bought their country property. And it's really a little slice of heaven. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. If you end up liking this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications, and share a comment down below. But let's let the Andersons share their story of moving into the country.
So we've been out here for over 10 years, and it's been a long journey. We finally have our country property, but it started back before we had children, and we heard these messages. And we were convicted that we needed to, when we had children, to raise them in the country. And so it's been, that we didn't follow that conviction right away.
Yeah, I'll just interject here that the conviction, I think most simplistically, was to find an environment that promoted the best character development, physical development, spiritual development. And so we kind of made that kind of our in our scope, our focus, and that was kind of our drive, our motivation for, what this little story is about, is searching and praying and being led to find this, what we believe was a sweet spot where God wanted us to be.
We didn't have a family at that time, but we knew that we wanted to have children. And so life gets busy, and we heard that message, we're convicted, but we kept going on. And it wasn't until 2 years later that we finally acted on it through a turn of events with Eric's job at the time. Things kind of folded up, and we were forced to do something different. And we almost felt like God was pushing us out. That seed had been planted, and we knew we wanted to do it, but it was almost like He pushed us out with those turn of events with the job.
Yeah, it's interesting because life events, you can look at them as circumstances or providences, and
good news, bad news, who knows? God knows.
God knows. Yeah, so we had some pretty substantial closed doors, and we looked at each other and we were praying, and we're like, this is the time. This is the time.
And we just had a baby. So everything was happening at once, and Eric said, well, I'll go out there, you stay, because we had just had our oldest, Valentina, and she was about 2 weeks old. So Eric went out by himself.
And we were outside of Seattle, and we're in Tennessee now, so I flew out to Tennessee.
By yourself, and you found some practices that you looked at, and he found one in particular that he just knew was the right one. And it was in a place that neither of us had ever heard of or been to, out in rural Tennessee.
It's rural, and it's the town is called Hohenwald. But you look at it and you think Hohenwald, which everyone's like, hole in the wall? You're moving a hole in the wall?
That joke a lot.
Yeah, too many times.
But we felt God impressing us to make this move, and so we prayed about it. And Eric said, I think this is the place. And I hadn't seen it, but I said, well, let's do it. If God's leading, let's move out. And so we moved within a few weeks after that. Well, actually, a few months after that, we made the move out here. And we came out here with a 2-month-old. And so we thought, we're finally in rural Tennessee, right? We can have our country property. But it didn't quite happen so fast. Even though we came out here, we still rented in a little town here. So we were still in the little center town with the logging trucks going by and the cars. We were still kind of in the city. And there were good parts. We were near where Eric was working, and that was good. And we had we had a house that we still owned back in Washington, so we were still dealing with that and renting out here. But as the story goes, we kept renting, and we kept thinking, well, we want country property, but we had these ideas of what we wanted. And we wanted all this land and water and waterfalls and springs and creeks and just everything you think of with country property, and place for kids to play, and of course a garden and
established fruit trees, and I mean just a picture book of just an ideal view of the nice setup.
And a nice, what we thought was a nice house. And so we kept looking, and we would see places, but they just didn't seem to fit. So we rented another place. So we're on our second rental out here, still kind of in the city. And I almost feel like God was taking us in baby steps, because we both grew up in suburbia. We're not country folk, but we've totally embraced it now that we're out here. And so we were at our second rental, and we had 2 children at the time. And we were at a place where I felt like there were health concerns, where we were living near 2 gas stations, and some things were affecting us. And I was praying, Lord, I don't think that it's healthy for us to stay here. I think we need to move. And it was almost like a fire under me, like, okay, I'll show you, go out and look. And I felt so strong. I told Erik, and he was supportive. The next morning I got our 2 girls in the car, and I prayed, and I said, Lord, I'm going to find a place today. Show me where to go.
Well, you know, we've been married, and you know, when your wife just has that look in her face, like in her eyes, like a fire's under her, and you just know that look. You're like, all right, we got to do something. You know, I got to the intensity in her eye, you know, the seriousness, and it was that whole nonverbal communication, and we.
So this was a stepping stone into country living, because at this time we were in still the little city center with a lot of houses around us, and you know, we could hear the streetcars, the ambulances going by, all that. So we went, and we're in the car, and I'm just determined to find a place. I was going to drive everywhere looking for rental signs, talking to people. I had mapped out some people. I'd made phone calls, left messages with people who had listings, but I hadn't heard back, but I was still going to find something. So I'm driving, and I have a friend who calls me, and she says, Sherri, I have this produce. We would buy produce from them. I have a big box. Are you interested in buying it? I said, sure. I'd buy anything they had. So I went over there. I said, let's go and pick up this produce, and then we'll continue on our journey. So we went up there and picked up a big box of produce. And my friend says, what are you doing today? And I said, well, I'm looking for another place to rent. Maybe to buy, but to rent. I really feel impressed. We need to move out of this place. And she said, well, have you seen this farmhouse, this country place down the road? It's around the corner. It's a white one. And in my mind, I thought I knew what she was talking about. And I said, yeah, I've seen that place. It's a little more than what we were thinking, because I'd looked at it online. And I said, well, I'll drive by it. I'll take a look at it. So my daughters, who were really young at the time, they heard that. My oldest daughter heard that. And we get in the car, and we're driving away, and there's another little white house right across from this farm. And she says, Mom, look, there it is. There's the little white house. And I looked, I said, no, that's not it. She said, yes, that's it, the white house. And I looked, and I thought, oh, I've never really noticed that house before. I wonder what the deal is with it. And I see some people out there, so I stop. I pull in the long driveway. And there were 2 men there, one an older man. And I said, is this your house? He said, no, but it belongs to my grandson there. And I said, is he renting it? He said, well, not yet. He just bought it, but you can talk to him and see if he wants to rent. So I talked to him, young man, real nice man. And he said, well, I wasn't planning to rent it, but I'd be open to renting it. You want to see it? I said, sure. So we got out, and he opened it, and we looked through, and we liked it. And mind you, this wasn't for sale. We were renting. But to me, this was an answer to prayer because it was out in the country. It had 40 acres, right across from a farm of some people that we knew. And I was so excited because it's hard to find rentals around here. And so I told my husband, he came by that night, and it was almost sundown, but he still wanted to come see it, even if it was kind of dark. And right as we're pulling in, the owner's pulling out. They'd just been doing some work there. And I said, my husband's here. And he said, oh, well, I can show him the place. So we backed up and he showed it to Erik, and we were in agreement that we liked it. And so that was an answer to prayer, to move out of the place where I felt like we weren't in a healthy situation with our family. Not only physically, but spiritually, we weren't in the right place. And so God took us step by step. That was our first step. And we lived in that place for almost 3 years.
Let me just interject something here. You know, up until this point, we were looking for that ideal slice of country land, and we just still couldn't find it. You know, we're praying and we're just trying to find something that would meet our family needs. And, you know, because we couldn't find it, we didn't have peace, we just continued to rent while we kept on searching.
So while we rented this country property, we were able to learn more about gardening. So now, move forward, we were there about almost 3 years. And it was Erik's birthday, and we went out to celebrate with the family, and we were driving back. And it's almost like God talked to both of us at the same time. We just got into this really deep conversation about our goals and what we came out here for, to raise our family in the country, our children. And our children were about 5 and 3. We had a 1.5-year-old at that time and one on the way. And we thought, they're growing up. And here we are. We've been out here for a number of years, and we still don't have our country property. We still haven't found that idyllic country property that we'd been looking for. And I believe it was you, Erik, that said, we just need to get something and start following our convictions. Just get out there and get into gardening, find a place where our kids can run around, be in nature. And so we just kind of thought, okay, God, forget all of these ideals that we had. We just need to find something. And we prayed, we stopped the car and we prayed and just poured out our heart to God and said, Lord, show us what to do. We want to really follow your counsel and do what's right. And so we had that prayer and we had peace and went home that evening. And we got home, and on the door, we came home, and on the door was a little business card. Didn't say anything like hi or what this was for on the back. It just had a listing of 4.5 acres, 3-bed, 2-bath, and listed, you know, this property, and it said, call if interested. And we thought, well, that's strange. Who is this from? It didn't even have a name. It just had a number, and we just prayed about it. I went to see it because Erik was at work. Took the kids, we went to see it, and I thought it was beautiful with this little house, and it's just without buildings, and we just thought it's perfect. They had a garden, fruit trees, and I could just see a swing hanging from the trees. I could just see the kids running around and playing. And we thought, well, it doesn't fit, obviously, our criteria of what we wanted. We wanted more land. We wanted all these other things. But this seems right.
You know, you have these experiences in life where the door opens and you feel like you've been praying for it, and you don't walk through it. You just sprint through it because this is what we've been waiting for.
We decided, we prayed about it. We felt impressed to move quickly. And the next day we made an offer on it. And later, they accepted it. Later, the lady told me that the day after, someone else made an offer on it, but they had already made an offer and told us we could have it. And they had just put it on the market a few days before. So God just opened that door, and He had to put us in the right mindset to even recognize that this is something good. Otherwise, we wouldn't have acted on it, because sometimes God gives you doors and they're just open for a little amount of time. And if you're in the right mindset, if you're in tune with God's leading, He'll say, go through it. Other times He says, wait, but sometimes He just wants you to walk through it when it opens, because it may not open very long. So this was one of those situations. And we were able to close on it. We've been here for about 4 years. And things have changed. This property has been wonderful, but the story doesn't stop there, because it had been maybe a couple years or so that the property next to us became available. We thought, you know what, maybe we need to buy that as a little more of a privacy for our house. And so we ended up buying the 18 acres on that side. And then at some point, our family's growing. We had our 4th child here in the house. Wonderful experience. And we were thinking, we're kind of growing out of this house. It's been great. And 2 years ago, we invited my mom to come live with us. And so we were talking about expansion.
The 18 acres that we had, which was over this way, was friends of ours have a lot of horses, and they asked if we could put horses on our property. They would take care of them. I mean, that was just irresistible, to have horses that other people would take care of, that we could feed our carrots and apples to. So we knew that would remain as a horse pasture, and we kind of been eyeing this adjacent lot to us, thinking that would be a nice place to build. And a gentleman just bought this tract of land, was several months
Before we bought.
Yeah, several months before we bought our 4.5 acres. And I thought, let me just text him. I mean, he's a nice guy, and see if he'd consider. He has 85 acres. See if he'd consider just selling just the upper field where we could build on, that was attached to our property. And so I text him, and it's just amazing. It's just life's full of surprises, because he said no. He wasn't interested in selling that top little field, but he said, he's kind of a character the way he worded it, but he said, but I'll sell you the whole thing if you want to buy the whole 85 acres. And I mean, I think we talked about it for 5-10 minutes and prayed about it, but it just seemed like a no-brainer. We're going to buy the whole thing. And so we added another 85 acres to our 18, to our 4.5, and it's turned into 107 acres. And initially we never thought it was going to go that way. And I mean, we didn't really need that many, but it's just amazing how the doors have been opened, and we have 4 kids and a mother-in-law, and now we just have more than enough space, multiple building sites, and we just have a lot of options to build a home for us, a little bit bigger home for ourselves, and if we want to do a lot more with gardening and agriculture, and maybe with animals, and it's just a miracle. I never would have guessed it would have unfolded this way. It's just been an amazing journey, and I think would have we been ready mentally, financially, to dive into this if we would have been presented right away? Probably not. And in so many ways of our lives, we look back and there's been stages or chapters or steps.
We've learned so much from this experience, and we had so many ideals of what we were looking for, what we thought we needed, what we thought we didn't want, and that kept us from God's will. And sometimes we have ideas of what we want. We wanted a lot of land, a lot of water, all these things that are great, but we really just needed to step forward and start doing what we felt convicted to do, to get a piece of land, to start growing food, having a garden, place where our kids could run around. And you've seen through this story how God has led us step by step. We didn't see the future with each step. We could only see in front of our face with each step, but we were trusting God with this step and that step. And He knew how to teach us along the way, because we needed to learn a lot. And our kids have learned a lot. And now we have more property than we know what to do with or to take care of, but we have a lot. Even the other day we went exploring on the property and we found another potential spring or water source up there. And we're still exploring, and I don't think the story's over yet. I think God still has more in store, and it's just beautiful to trust God with how He leads us step by step.
What a beautiful testimony. A happy family. Yeah, I'll tell you, I've hardly ever seen happier children in my life. We had such a great time with the Andersons, spending time with them. We were speaking in their area this weekend. And I just want to kind of challenge you to allow God to lead you and your family. And don't go ahead of God, but also don't set up all these perfect situations that unless I get it exactly the way I want it, I have to have a spring or gravity-fed water, I have to have a creek. Hey, I mean, if those doors open, awesome, more power to you, what a blessing. But finding your country home, I mean, having water like a well is some kind of water, I think, is a necessity. But sometimes we can make our move, and if the Lord opens the door for something better later on, great. But you may find that something is ideal, even though it didn't fit up to your exact ideals at the time. So go forward as God leads. God bless. And if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications. God bless, and have a fantastic day.